The nail punched straight through the wood of my front door like it had a personal grudge, pinning a screaming red notice that read, "Emergency repossession. Vacate by Friday or be removed." Signed in perfect cursive. Karen Voss, President, Oakwood Grove HOA. I wasn't even in Oakwood Grove. My house sat on the edge, outside their stupid wrought iron gates, minding its own business with a backyard full of my late dad's workshop shed and 12 happy chickens that laid breakfast every morning. Yet here was Karen, deciding property lines were optional and my entire life was now her next community improvement project. I laughed once, short, sharp, the kind that tastes like rust, because I still thought this was some prank. Then the matte black SUVs rolled up my driveway at 7:12 a.m., two guys in tactical vests and fresh buzzcuts climbing out like budget mall cops. One clutched a clipboard like it was the Constitution. The other kept his hand hovering over a holster that definitely wasn't department issued. "Mr. Hayes," the clipboard guy droned. "We're here for a perimeter inspection under Municipal Subcode 7. I leaned against the doorframe, coffee still warm in my hand. "You got a warrant?" He smiled the way people smile when they're about to enjoy themselves. "Emergency protocol. No consent required." That was the exact second I realized Karen Voss hadn't just overstepped. She declared war on a house that had never belonged to her. I let the silence stretch until the fake cops shifted uncomfortably. My golden retriever buddy was already growling low behind the screen door, sensing the threat. I stepped forward, blocking the path to my backyard. "You're not stepping past this porch without real law enforcement." Clipboard guy's partner brushed his holster again. "Cute intimidation tactic. We'll note your non-compliance, sir. This escalates." They backed off eventually, but not before I snapped photos of their plates, the crooked laminated HOA enforcement badges taped inside the windshield, and the way their boots left perfect prints in my gravel like they owned the place. I posted the pics to the local Facebook group before their taillights even disappeared. New HOA cosplay unit just tried to inspect my backyard chickens. Subcode 7 apparently. Replies flooded in within minutes. Same clown showed up at my shed last month. Karen's turning into a cult. Told you people, this ain't a neighborhood watch, it's a neighborhood takeover. The validation felt good, but it didn't stop the next blow. My phone rang from an unknown number while I was still scrolling. I answered on speaker. "Mr. Hayes, this is Karen Voss." Her voice was honey poured over broken glass. Sweet, smooth, deadly. "I see you chose confrontation over compliance. The notice was secured for visibility, perfectly legal under our new emergency expansion guidelines." I laughed again, this time colder. "Expansion guidelines that magically include a house that's never been in your HOA. Your residency status has been updated," she said, like she was announcing the weather. "You are now under Oakwood Grove Covenant." Click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, pulse hammering. This wasn't about chickens or my shed anymore. Karen Voss wanted my land, all 1.2 acres of it, and she'd just rewritten reality to get it. The unease sat in my stomach like bad coffee all morning. I walked the property line anyway, same as every day, and that's when I saw them. Bright orange surveyor flags marching in a perfect line straight through my backyard, 20 feet past where my actual fence stood. They weren't bluffing. They were mapping my entire life for seizure. Buddy, curious as always, had already tangled himself in one of the plastic tapes. A raw scrape bled just above his paw where the cheap wire had cut him. I knelt, gently freeing my dog, feeling the fury crystallize into something sharp and patient. I carried the flag back to the house like evidence from a crime scene, the black Sharpie coordinates mocking me. By afternoon I was at the county records office, flag in one hand, complaint form in the other. The clerk, tired eyes behind thick glasses, barely glanced up. "We've had 11 of these about Oakwood Grove already." 11. I kept my voice level. She sighed, slid a sticky note across the counter almost secretly. "Talk to Sheriff Marcus Bellwether. He might advise." Marcus, my own brother. The way she said it told me the rot went deeper than one power-hungry Karen. I called him that night from the porch, voice low. "They nailed a notice to my door, Marcus. Fake cops. Flags on my land. Buddy got hurt. He was quiet a long beat. Jordan, you're not the first. Karen's been running this script for years. Remember old Mr. Hargrove? His house donated to the HOA for a community garden that somehow became her private pool house. My stomach tightened. She's done this before. And she's scared now, Marcus said. Your place is the last big lot on the edge. Once she takes it, the developer money flows. Be careful, little brother. She plays dirty, and someone upstairs is pulling strings to keep her protected. I hung up staring at the dark yard. Dad's old workshop shed glowing faintly under the security light. I could almost hear his voice from years ago. They don't want your house, son. They want what it represents, someone who still says no. The next escalation came before sunrise. A megaphone cracked the quiet. Mr. Hayes, this is Oakwood Grove Compliance Division. Step outside immediately. For black trucks, no plates, just stenciled numbers. 6 figures in khaki tactical gear climbed out, one already fiddling with the drone remote. Then Karen Voss herself emerged from the lead vehicle. Beige windbreaker, clipboard, sunglasses at dawn like she was starring in her own cop drama. Good morning, Jordan, she called, voice syrupy. Phase 2 of your compliance review. You chose not to respond to proper notice. I leaned on the porch railing, sipping coffee I didn't even want. Proper notice? You mean the one you nailed to my door like a medieval execution order? Her smile never wavered. We're authorized under the extended covenant to inspect, and if necessary, secure any structure in breach. I raised an eyebrow. Last week it was Cypress Ridge rules. Now it's Oakwood Grove. You just make this up as you go. She waved a hand. Jurisdictional updates. Ratified last board meeting. There is no joint board, I said flatly. Her mask slipped for half a second. Pure venom flashing behind the polite smile. She nodded to her goons. 2 headed for my shed. The drone buzzed overhead like an angry hornet. I stepped off the porch, hands in pockets, calm I didn't feel. Touch that door and we're going to have a problem. One of the younger guys hesitated. Karen lifted her phone, already recording. Documenting resident hostility for the record. I smiled right into the lens. Smile bigger, Karen. Footage looks great in court. That's when the real sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Miller, calm and official. He took one look at the fake badges, the drone, Karen's furious face, and shut it down instantly. Ma'am, you and your team are trespassing on private property. Vacate now. Karen's eye twitched. We have jurisdiction. Not today, you don't. As they retreated, Karen leaned in close enough for only me to hear. Tell your niece the scholarship board reviews family property records very carefully these days. Such a bright girl. I slid down my spine. She just threatened my family. The war had officially gone nuclear. The weeks that followed were death by 1,000 cuts. Tools moved in my shed. Gate unlatched at night. Power flickering exactly when my security cameras tried to upload. Then the electric fence around the chicken run shorted out clean, sliced, not frayed. Someone had been inside. Suspicion landed on Rick, the new helpful gardener from 2 houses down who'd started offering free yard work right after the first notice. Always asking the right questions. Where's the backup generator? Ever think about selling? I set a trap. A fake folder labeled Property Transfer Options. Confidential, left unlocked. 3 days later it vanished. I waited. Thursday night at 11:17 p.m. My phone pinged, motion sensor at the well house. There was Rick, hoodie up, black bag slung over his shoulder, creeping toward my shed like he belonged there. I stepped out with a flashlight. Forgot to clock out, Rick? He bolted. I chased him across the damp grass, tackled him near the tree line. When I opened his bag, burner phone, tablet, hand-drawn map of my property with every camera blind spot marked in red. The tablet folder, Phase 3 Haze, contained surveillance photos, power logs, and a PDF titled Acceleration Recommended, signed K. Voss. Forged quitclaim deed with my signature copied perfectly, except for one tiny notary ink color Dad always used. Blue. Their version was black. Amateur hour. I called Marcus immediately, sent everything. His voice was grim. This is professional fraud, Jordan. But the stamp on that deed? County Zoning Chief Richard Sterling. He's in deep. That night I climbed into Dad's old shed, pried up the loose floorboard, and pulled out the real deed, yellowed, signed in Dad's bold hand. I laid it next to the forgery. The network was real. Karen Sterling Shell Companies, a development trust ready to pave my backyard for luxury townhomes. They'd even planned the mental instability narrative if I pushed back. I spent the night copying every file, then drove to Karen's manicured doorstep before dawn and left a thick envelope. On the front I wrote, "Still not yours." By lunchtime her desperate video was up on the HOA page. Karen pleading victimhood while her voice cracked. Comments tore her apart. The video vanished fast, but I'd saved it. Now it was time for the endgame. I reinforced everything. Triple cameras, motion lights, a PA system wired to a recording of Marcus's voice. Mr. Thompson, my quiet neighbor who owned the disputed access strip, confirmed he'd been waiting 30 years for Karen to overstep onto his documented land. "Tell me when," he said, steel in his calm voice. The final morning started with 5 black SUVs skidding up my drive. Karen emerged in full authority cosplay, 8 officers fanning out behind her. Under Emergency Directive 74B, this property is now under administrative hold. I stepped onto the porch. Unless that paper has a real judge's signature, it's toilet paper with fancy seals. She snapped her fingers. One goon actually reached for my shed door. Motion sensors tripped. Blinding spotlights flooded the yard. Sirens blared. Marcus's recorded voice boomed. "This is Sheriff Marcus Bellwether. You are trespassing on private property under criminal investigation. Hands where I can see them." Chaos. Goons stumbled, one dropped his clipboard. Karen spun, face white. Then Mr. Thompson walked up calm as Sunday, thick file in hand. "Miss Voss, your vehicles are currently trespassing on my land. Here's the cease and desist, and the class action lawsuit the entire neighborhood just filed against you for fraud." Karen's mask shattered. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "Already did," I said. "Back when my dad offered you lemonade instead of calling the sheriff in 1991. For real." County cruisers rolled in silently. Marcus stepped out, warrant gleaming. "Karen Voss, you're under arrest for felony fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and impersonating law enforcement." The handcuffs clicked. Her empire of beige tyranny crumbled right there on my gravel driveway while neighbors applauded and phones recorded. The mugshot hit the local news by sunset. HOA president cuffed in fake raid, served by real sheriff. Her website went 404 overnight. Bumper stickers started appearing. "Karen isn't law." But the real victory came when 6 of her goons flipped, naming Sterling and the shell companies. The state DA opened a full investigation. Karen was just the local manager of something bigger. A pilot program targeting family land across counties. 2 weeks later I drove 2 hours north to warn the next target, Sarah Jenkins, handing her every file. She filed her injunction the same day. The fight wasn't over. It had just zoomed out. But for the first time in months I slept with the windows open, chickens clucking softly, Buddy snoring at my feet. Dad's shed stood solid in the moonlight. And somewhere in the mule dust box I kept the strange new card that arrived in a plain black envelope. A triangle over a house outline, fresh coordinates. I logged it, photographed it, filed it away. Because next time, and there would be a next time, someone else wouldn't have to start from scratch. The law is only paper. Good people are what make it hold. I used to think suburban life meant barbecues and block parties, not forged deeds and tactical cosplay. Karen Voss proved me wrong in the most expensive, humiliating way possible. After the arrest, the neighborhood changed overnight. People who'd crossed the street to avoid me now waved like we'd been best friends since kindergarten. Old Mrs. Delgado rolled up in her golf cart the next afternoon, lifted a tall glass of sweet tea in salute. Told everyone that woman was HOA Hitler with better hair. The local paper ran the story with my face conveniently pixelated in Karen's mugshot front and center. Raw, no makeup, no clipboard, just pure defeat. Channel 9 played the neighbor's drone footage on loop. Karen flinching under the spotlights, Mr. Thompson's calm legal takedown, the moment the real cuffs clicked. Comment sections exploded. This is why I left California. Every HOA needs its own Jordan Hayes. Karen's the reason we can't have nice things. The Cypress Ridge Estates, wait, Oakwood Grove, website went dark. Their Facebook page got flooded with memes of Karen's face photoshopped onto wanted posters. Someone even started selling t-shirts online with her mugshot and the caption violation. Terminal arrogance, Section 8 of the Karen Code. I didn't buy one, but I laughed harder than I had in months. Marcus stopped by a few days later, 2 cold beers in hand, and we sat on the porch watching the chickens peck around the yard like nothing had happened. 6 officers already flipped, he said. They're singing like choir boys. Fake badge protocols, the mail reroute scheme, even the script for making you look crazy if you fought back. Sterling resigned to spend time with family before the suspension hit his desk. I took a long pull of beer. But the email on Karen's tablet reassignment, Pilot Zone Midwest Beta. Those coordinates aren't anywhere near here. Marcus nodded, face serious. This wasn't her solo masterpiece. Apex Land Holdings and Horizon Development Trust are bigger than one suburban Karen. They're running the same playbook in 3 states. Different HOAs, same forged deeds, same fake enforcement teams. You just took down the local franchise manager. The words settled heavy. I'd won the battle, but the war had tentacles I couldn't see yet. That night I sat in Dad's shed, the real deed spread out under the work light, and felt the weight of every no he'd ever said to developers like Karen. He'd circled her name in red back in 1991 after she tried to sweet-talk him into selling for triple the value. She'll try again, he'd written. Not with a company next time, with paper. 33 years later the prophecy was fulfilled. And I'd answer the same way he would have. With evidence, patience, and zero surrender. The chickens settled in their coop, Buddy curled at my feet, and for the first time since the nail hit my door I felt something close to peace. But peace in a world run by people like Karen Voss is never permanent. 2 days later the plain black envelope appeared at the end of my driveway. No stamp, no return address. Inside, a stiff card with that same triangle over house symbol and a new set of GPS coordinates, this time pointing to a quiet ranch 60 miles north. My first instinct was to burn it. My second was to drive there immediately. Instead I photographed everything, logged the data, and tucked the card into Dad's old steel box labeled Mule Dust. Our family joke for emergency supplies. Someday another Jordan Hayes would open that box and find the map that could save his home before the first fake cop ever showed up. Because the next Karen was already out there, practicing her polite smile and sharpening her clipboard. And somewhere in the quiet suburbs of America, another family was about to wake up to a rusty nail through their front door. I closed the box, clicked the padlock, and stepped back into the sunlight. The fight wasn't over. It had just learned my address. But now I knew how to fight back, and I wasn't the only one watching anymore. Life slowly returned to something resembling normal. I sanded the hole in my front door where Karen's nail had punched through, filled it, painted over it. A tiny scar that only I would ever notice. Every morning I walked the fence line. Not checking for sabotage anymore, but simply reminding myself the land was still mine. The chickens laid eggs like nothing had happened. Buddy chased butterflies and occasionally dug holes I pretended not to see. But I wasn't the same man who'd once laughed at that red notice. I'd learned that community standards could be weaponized faster than any gun, that a pleasant smile and a clipboard could do more damage than a SWAT team, and that silence wasn't weakness. It was the longest, sharpest blade you could carry. The state investigation kept grinding forward. 3 more county employees got suspended. Apex Land Holdings suddenly restructured. Sarah Jenkins, the ranch owner I'd warned, sent me a photo of her own cease and desist order that had mysteriously disappeared after she filed with the Attorney General. For other landowners across 2 states reached out through encrypted channels. Same story, different Karens. The playbook was corporate now, not just suburban spite. Dad's notebook had been right all along. They never stopped circling. They just change zip codes. One quiet evening I sat on the porch swing Dad had hung 30 years ago. The same swing where he'd warned me about vultures in suits. Marcus pulled up in his personal truck, no lights, just 2 more cold beers. We didn't talk about Karen. We talked about the coordinates on the new card. We talked about how the next target probably had no idea what was coming. And we made a pact, quiet, no paperwork, that whenever the next envelope showed up we'd be ready. Because the law is only paper, but brothers, neighbors, and a few well-placed chickens can turn that paper into something that actually holds. I still keep the mule dust box on the top shelf of the shed. Inside it now sits the original deed, Dad's notebook, the forged copy with its wrong ink, Danny Waite Rick's tablet, and that strange triangle card with fresh coordinates. Someday someone else will need the map. They won't have to start from scratch. They'll know exactly which HOA Karen to watch, which fake cop to photograph, and which rusty nail never to ignore. Until then I'll keep the chickens fed, the cameras rolling, and the porch light on. Because in the quiet suburbs of America, the real Homeowners Association isn't the one with the fancy letterhead. It's the one made of people who refuse to let a beige tyrant with a clipboard decide whose home is next. And if another Karen ever decides my house looks like her next community project, she'll learn the same lesson the last one did. Some doors you nail notices till they nail back. So tell me, when the HOA Karen shows up at your door with a forged deed and a smile, who's really in the wrong? The homeowner protecting 3 generations of memories, or the woman who thinks rules only apply to everyone else? Drop your answer below. Because next time it might be your door. And you'll want to be ready.